Hi there, this is John from Joburg. I have made it out of Dubai before the restrictions happened, and I just saw today they have said that no UAE residents are allowed back in for another 2 weeks, and so I'm out of Dubai for a bit, but that's fine. I made the decision to be with my family. If you've been watching my videos, you'll know that I made a decision based on health, food, and family, and those being the most important things that I made decisions from. But what I'm starting to see now is this incredible pressure on relationships, an incredible pressure that all this pressure is bringing about our most intimate relationships. And I'm hearing of friends taking a lot of strain because of this and sort of like exasperating existing issues. And so I wanted to make a quick video around intimate relationships. And now I'm obviously not a trained relationship coach, but I have been married, I have been divorced, and I've been in another very serious relationship which ended badly. And both of them were huge catalysts into me learning more about my sort of shadow selves as well as my deep subconscious patterning that we all have. You know, we grow up not looking for love, but looking for familiarity, because we think that is love. And so we repeat the relationships our fathers and mothers had with us or with each other. And so the research that I did and I wrote about in my second book was all about this sort of shadow aspect that we carry. And so Jung, the godfather of psychology, says that there's only two ways for us to be brought up: the perception that we are abandoned by our parents, or the perception that we are overloaded or overwhelmed by our parents. Abandoned, obviously, is obvious if one of them leaves or is not emotionally available, or overwhelmed, meaning one of our parents made us grow up very quickly because of the circumstances, or maybe one of our parents was just immature and didn't want to deal with certain things. And so what starts to happen throughout life is we go about attracting people that had the exact opposite upbringing. So for example, if I was abandoned by my parents, I will attract somebody into my life that has been overwhelmed. And what happens is that these two start like gnawing at each other. So my first relationship, my marriage, I was overwhelmed by my mother. My ex-wife was abandoned by her mother. And so this became the thing that we had to work on, is I wanted to escape as much as quickly because I was feeling this overwhelmment. She needed not to be abandoned, so she held on so tightly. And this created such resentment and anger. And obviously we got divorced. I went through a period of healing. But then what happened is I got into a relationship that I was the one who's feeling abandoned and she was the one feeling overwhelmed because of my father relationship. Now, I was lucky enough to feel abandoned by my father and overwhelmed by my mother. So I had two of these to sort out. And these very intimate relationships are there to bring about these very painful baseline nuances that we learned as children. So if you are in an intimate relationship and you can't get past each other's sort of need states of abandonment and overwhelmment, I highly recommend you seek help, and a lot of it, so that you can break this patterning. Now, the obvious scenario is that either you will be much stronger or you won't be with each other because you've learned the lesson that you need to learn from each other. Another thing that I learned about relationships was how important it is to love each other with no strings attached and no expectations. That is an incredibly difficult thing to do, but one of the teachers that I was working with said to me that I have a very clear opportunity to save my marriage. And so I said, okay, well, how would I save my marriage? Because once we had split up, I was very happy that we had split up, and then I panicked a little bit and I wanted to get my ex-wife back. But the teacher said to me, it's easy for you to save your marriage. I said, okay, well, tell me how. She says, well, you and your ex-wife used to love each other with strings attached. So I said, okay. She says, well, you need to love her with no strings attached. And I said, okay, great. No strings attached. Well, that saved my marriage. And she says, you're not listening to me. I said, no strings attached. It's love her with no strings attached. And that lack of expectation is such a freeing thing, but realize that those expectations are birthed out of either being overwhelmed or abandoned. And if you don't heal those overwhelmed and abandoned emotional traits within yourself, you'll keep repeating relationships of women that are too needy, or men that abandon you, or men that are too needy, and women that abandon you. And that cycle will just keep going until you've actually dealt with the childhood issues. Now, the last point is a discussion I had with an ex-girlfriend of mine around the fact that some women want to be cared for and want to be looked after inside the marriage, and the man is happy to go out and earn the money and for the woman to look after the family. And I am totally against this. And I tell you why, is we all have a pocket of genius above us. And the most important thing we could do in our lives is to find out what this pocket of genius is. It's the most amazing energy to get linked into. Now, if you just say, well, I just want to relax, my husband or my wife, we live in modern times, must do all the work and bring all the money in. And what my focus is going to be is only to bring up the family, do yoga retreats, have coffee with my girlfriends or boyfriends, and whatever the case may be, and just like have a more easy life. I feel that is the worst thing you could do. And it's not about you making money and you not making money. It's about you should be single-handedly, single-focusedly try to figure out why you're on earth. Mark Twain says it often, well, I say Mark Twain's quote often, the two most important days of your life are when you're born and when you find out why. Why would you not want to find out why? And if you release that responsibility from yourself and say, well, you should be looking after me, and that's the decision we made, and now you have lost your own power to go and figure out what it is you're here on earth for, that would be the best thing for your children to see. Not time with them, because time with them is important, but time with them with you at your best is what your children would inspire them to look for their genius and why they are on earth. So just to recap, if you can't figure each other out in an intimate relationship, you're following patterns that you have learned throughout life. One of being abandoned or being overwhelmed. 2, try and figure out how you can love each other with no strings attached. And these expectations against are birthed based on being overwhelmed or abandoned. And finally, partnerships should be partnerships, 50-50. We should both be aiming at becoming the best versions of ourselves. And in that process, we bring about magic between us. And in that process, we can bring up the best family. We can be at our best selves for ourselves and for the unit of relationship that we've kind of committed ourselves to. I just wish that I knew this when I was married. And I wish that I knew this when I was in that relationship, because it would make it so much more seamless and so much more painless. But we know that we have to go through these pains to realize and to awaken and to get over sorrow and get over resentment and get over anger and ultimately take full responsibility for every piece of that relationship. And that's really the only way to heal. We are in strange times. There'll be brand new things for us to be dealing with. We're not even worried about future trends or AI and blockchain. That's like irrelevant to all of us now. We're like dealing with quite personal things, because now you're like in your own space now with your intimate other half, and that could be some challenging times ahead. So anyway, I'll keep making videos and sharing what's on top of mind, because I've got nothing to do. So I'm writing my book and I'm just like doing a couple of things here and there. So I've got a lot of content bubbling up in my head. Cheers.